the Boston series. I mean, he was going to pitch that Wednesday, and they pushed him back to Saturday. And we said at the time, look, it doesn't mean that this guy tore his rotator cuff or anything like that, but clearly there was an issue. Clearly it was something that was important enough to push him back until Saturday. And then we just saw how he looked on Saturday. I mean, he just didn't look right. Walking hitters, had no command. The velocity was down, especially early in the game. He did get it back up there, but never had any command. And again, despite what he said, you looked at the results and said, I'm not so sure. Well, sure enough, during his bullpen session on Tuesday, he felt discomfort for the first time while throwing, and that's what really had them concerned. Leanne Curl examined him. They gave him a cortisone injection. Now, the good news is they're saying it's inflammation. You hope that's all it is and it's not anything structural. But to this point, and we'll see, but to this point, they're hoping he can be back after the 15-day period. But very clearly a big loss and just going to put a ton of pressure on the likes of Kevin Gausman and Dylan Bundy to really pick up the slack, because we know the story of how that back end of the rotation has looked all year, and now
that becomes the front. The back is the caboose is leading the train now at this point, because it's going to be Jimenez or Worley or one of the guys that quite frankly hasn't done it yet, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be Jimenez on Thursday. They've said that, but we'll see after that. I mean, I'm sure they'll utilize their off days the best way they can. We'll see about Vance Worley, who ended up pitching 3 innings and getting the save on Tuesday night. Mike Wright, Tyler Wilson. I mean, go through the names. We know the candidates. There's no one to be excited about. I mean, it's where they are. They picked up Wade Miley to help fortify the rotation, and he's currently their biggest problem beyond Tillman's injury now. So it's uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it.
Well, he's going to miss starts against the Yankees or the Blue Jays, and you hope you get him back, I guess, in the Tampa series, after Labor Day or Labor Day week. But that feels like a long time off. That feels like 3 starts, kind of, sort of, right?
It really does. And like I said, I mean, they'll have a couple off days here and there, but this guy's been their best pitcher by far. I mean, he's been their ace. He's been everything they could have asked from him, coming off of what was a pretty bad season for him last year for his standards. So, we know it's foolish to say you're done about anything in baseball. I mean, we witnessed this a couple years ago when the Orioles were playing in September without Matt Wieters and Manny Machado and Chris Davis, who had been suspended. But when you're a team that's already really struggling in the starting pitching department and you lose your ace, even for 15 days, and if you're an Orioles fan, you pray that's only how long it is. But it's just going to put a lot of pressure on Gausman and Bundy, and Gallardo's pitched better of late. So really you're going to be looking at those 3 guys and say those 3 need to continue what they've done in the month of August, because all 3 of them have had their moments. Bundy's been really good overall in August. Gausman has an ERA of 3.03 in August, and Gallardo's been better. Those 3 must continue that, and then Miley and whoever else is taking the ball, you kind of just hope they can turn things around, because no one's going to replace Chris Tillman by themselves, but this team needs to at least give its offense a chance to win. And oh, by the way, this offense is going to have to really heat up and be more like it was in the first half. And we knew that anyway, but especially holds true now without Chris Tillman.
Well, and then you have teams like, the Royals getting better this time of the year. Even the Yankees have kind of hung around a little bit. We're going to see them. Part of this is good fortune, right? I mean, I wrote about this when the Ravens won in the second book. I mean, luck. And I don't mean Andrew or Oliver, right? You have to be lucky in some capacity. And I think for this point with the Orioles, this is about them scoring runs again, going back into that June thing where they start to hit the ball again, and 6-0 lead kind of out of the gate on Tuesday night against the Nats. That's going to be the recipe for how this thing gets. But Chris Davis needs to be better now that Tillman's not around. They all need to be better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that's why they've been better of late swinging the bats. I mean, still not putting 5 runs on the board per night consistently, and I mean that as an average, of course. But they've been a little bit better. And as I said a few minutes ago, I really like the approach on Tuesday. Reynaldo Lopez is someone who's very highly touted in the Nats system. had been pretty good, certainly had his moments, his first few starts, but, they really made him work. I mean, he threw 82 pitches in 2 2/3 innings. How many times are we sitting here complaining about the Orioles having 11 pitch innings, guys swinging at the first pitch? They didn't really do a whole lot of that on Tuesday. They worked counts, didn't draw a ton of walks. They only walked 4 times over the course of the night, but they just worked a lot of deep counts. They got good pitches to hit, and they scored 8 runs with only one of them coming via the home run. So that was nice to see. They're going to have more of that, not just for the next 2 games against the Nats, but certainly moving forward if they're going to try to have any chance of overcoming this Tillman injury. They need to pitch better. Other guys need to step up, but I think you're exactly right. You're really counting on this offense to find some kind of stride like it had in the first half. I don't know if you can expect them to hit home runs again at the rate that they did in June, but the overall run production has to be more like it was in the first half. And we already knew this. It's just this Tillman thing makes it a 100% yes, you're going to have to do that if you want any chance of making the postseason.
Luke Jones joining us here. You can follow him out on Twitter at Baltimore Luke, as well as Luke at WNST.net. Of course, we're monitoring all things at Owings Mills. We'll be on the fields there today and tomorrow, heading into Saturday night with the Detroit Lions. Meanwhile, the Orioles, get sort of a wake-up here from Bundy and Gausman at the beginning of the week. They probably knew things weren't trending in the right direction for Chris Tillman behind the scenes as well. Nice start to this home and home sort of weirdness of late August with the Nationals, but good to be at least beating a good team right now. And hey, they got their problems too. They had their own 9-1-1 on Monday when Strasburg went on the DL, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's look at what the Dodgers are dealing with right now, by the way. I mean, 7 starting pitchers on the DL right now?
And still battering Bumgarner on Tuesday night,
I mean,
right?
It's just incredible. And that's not to say that it's not a big deal when you lose guys, but it is to say that, that's why anyone who wants to proclaim a team to be dead because they lose one player, I mean, the Dodgers have been way better without Kershaw. Now, we know Kershaw's, for my money, the best pitcher on the planet when healthy, but, they've really done a nice job of surviving without him and thriving without him. So, it just speaks to when you do have other guys step up. And
well, things happen. I mean, the Royals haven't lost since like July or something, right? I mean, and we had all proclaimed them dead, and here they. I mean,
they were dead 2 weeks ago. Like people were talking about them in terms of why didn't they sell more than they did? You know what I mean? Like it was incredible, sure. And now they've won 9 straight, and they're right back in the wild card race. So,
and this team's won 7 in a row twice, so there's no thought that they can't batter their way to 8, 9, and 10 runs every night for a week or two, right?
Absolutely, and we talked about this after they lost 3 out of 4 from Houston. As bad as they looked, as dire as the situation appeared, we did say when we were talking about this Sunday into Monday that they were a 6-game winning streak away from potentially being back in first place. Now, Toronto and Boston continue to play really well, but at the same time, you can't consume yourself with what they're doing. You just take care of your own business, and things will probably work out, whether it means winning the division or whether it means at least qualifying for one of the 2 wild card spots. So it was really nice to see Gausman do what he did. It wasn't an overwhelming night for him in terms of stuff. He only had 6 swinging strikes, only 2 strikeouts, which, those are pretty pedestrian numbers for his standards, knowing what kind of stuff he has. But that's a Nats team that doesn't strike out a whole lot. They work deep counts, but I think they were just, they just did a nice job fouling off a lot of pitches. And the thing I liked, even though he didn't have the strikeouts, not a whole lot of hard contact against him. Even some of their hits weren't exactly clobbered. So it was really nice to see him, despite the pitch count early on, looking like he was going to struggle to get through 5 innings. Nice to see him get through 6. 6 scoreless. You'll take that any day of the week. And, with Chris Tillman now on the shelf, at least for the time being, you're going to sink or swim with Gausman and Bundy kind of leading the way. Gallardo, you hope to get, kind of at least can continue what he's done here recently. Miley can't be much worse, so maybe if you want to try to put a positive spin on it that way, maybe he straightens himself out a little bit, but it just hasn't been pretty. And then, that last spot, Jimenez, Van Forley, whoever it might be moving forward, we know Ubaldo is going to get the first crack on Thursday. So hold your breath.
I'm holding my nose is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. But we'll see how that plays out. And like I said, you would think Buck Showalter try to use some off days if he can, but at the same time you want to try to keep the rest of your pitching staff healthy. So it's less than ideal, and I'm guessing Tuesday night was a very sleepless night for Buck Showalter after finding out that the bullpen session went poorly on Tuesday and that Tillman was going to the DL.
All right, Luke, this is maybe a bigger issue, and it's something I saw on Tuesday night. It's something we have not talked about here, and I feel like we talk about a lot of baseball and a lot of issues and a lot of things, and certainly out on the social space. The Nationals kicked the ball around a bunch, and really in that third inning, it went from a 3-0 game to a 6-0 game, and I know Murphy, who's been their MVP, maybe the MVP of the National League, quite frankly, kicking the ball around a little bit. That's something that we have not seen other teams do with the Orioles, and follow along here. When all you do is hit home runs, and even when you hit a single or a double, it's a single or a double. You're not trying to stretch singles into doubles. You're not taking the extra base. You don't steal a lot of bases. All that slowness and all of that plotting, it is interesting that they don't put pressure on defenses to force errors, and we don't see sort of floodgate innings the way we did. They really changed the game on Tuesday night. That's something that we underestimate, I think. And I know the Sabre types are all into that, and the Moneyball types, but pressuring defense is creating the other team having to make a play, make a throw, be more on it. The Orioles haven't benefited from like a lot of kicking the ball around this year on the other side. It was nice to see that on Tuesday, but that could certainly be part of the arsenal as well.
Yeah, the only problem is, you just don't have many guys with any speed at all.
No doubt.
It's one thing to force the issue, and I love the concept if you have the personnel to do it, but, Manny Machado is one of the guys that's forced the issue, and we've seen him get thrown out at third base in some really bad situations. Adam Jones can run, but he's not a guy who steals bases. He's never really been that, and certainly hasn't been this year. That they basically have a philosophy that, and the sabermetrics support this, that if you're going to steal bases, you need to be successful 75% of the time or better. Otherwise, you're really, you're cutting off your nose instead of your face trying to force the issue. They have some guys who take the extra base when they can, but you just go through the names. Matt Wieters.
It's unbelievable. Start with Wieters. He might be the slowest guy ever.
Mark Trumbo. These are just, and these guys aren't necessarily terrible base runners in that they make bad decisions, but they just can't run.
Well, you also have Machado who's ripped up both of his knees. Do you really want him sliding around, right?
Right, and don't forget, Jonathan Scope had a serious knee injury last year as well. So, it's just, I hear what you're saying.
It's something they don't do that other teams have the ability to do. I'm not saying they should or they will. Right. I'm just saying when you see it come to life, you see what an inning looks like when another team kicks the ball around a little bit. We haven't had a lot of those this year. That's a part of the good fortune that's kind of gone, right?
Absolutely. And I guess on the flip side is the Orioles haven't been that team that's kicked the ball around very often.
Fair enough.
We know the outfield defense, corner outfield defense is absolutely an issue. Well, when you're trotting guys like Trumbo out there and, Hyun-Soo Kim, as much as I love him as an offensive player, he catches what he gets to, but he doesn't get to a whole lot. So you're talking about limited options at the corner outfield spots, but their infield defense. We saw the double play that Machado started last night. It was just incredible. It was a huge spot in the game when Vance Worley comes in the seventh inning, and it's 6-1 at that point.
Yeah, but you don't want it to be 6-4, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It was just getting to the point in the inning where things were starting to get a little uneasy. The middle of the Nationals lineup was approaching, and you're thinking a big blow here makes this a save situation again at the very least. Instead, Machado starts a 5-4-3 double play that looked like it's going to be a really difficult play, and they made it look easy. So, on the flip side of not maybe forcing the issue, not having other teams kick the ball around a whole lot against them, not having a lot of speed, the Orioles, to their credit, that infield defense, talked about this now for going on 5 years almost, that they just have such an ability to make difficult plays look so easy. And, J.J. Hardy doesn't have great range at shortstop anymore. Jonathan Scope doesn't have tremendous range at second base, but those guys turn double plays. I'll take them over anyone in baseball when it comes to the double play turn. And another thing we didn't mention, How about Jonathan Scope with a couple of those tags on Trey Turner trying to steal bases in the early innings? 2 plays initially ruled safe, and Scope is such a quick tagger. That's something that Buck Showalter talks about a lot. And as a reporter, you've heard him say it so many times that you almost have this tendency that you want to roll your eyes because, here's Buck talking about Scope or Hardy tagging again. But it really is true. I mean, that we just talked about the Orioles maybe not being able to be that team that can force the issue and take the extra base. They steal some outs when it comes to plays at second base because Hardy and Scope are so adept at getting a quick tag down. That's really something that's overlooked. That's something that isn't necessarily quantified in the game, but it's really impressive the way they're able to do it. And, it saved, Matt Wieters a couple stolen bases against his record. And, Wieters, it's tough. Trey Turner entered the night 14 of 15 in stolen bases. He's one of the few guys in the league that are that fast that can really legitimately steal bases.
And the Orioles let him on base 4 times. And you know what I mean? Like the last guy you want running around out there. Absolutely.
And, Wieters didn't make the best throws in the world, but Scope certainly made terrific tags. So, but that's what we talk about. I mean, if you're a team that has some clear flaws like the Orioles do, you got to be better around the margins, and that's one way that they have been really over the last few years.
Birds headed down to D.C. to continue their business with the Nationals. Of course, the big story, Chris Tillman going on the DL. And the other big story is the Ravens are playing a preseason game on Saturday night against the Lions. I have talked to lots of folks out in Detroit. You can check that out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault, or just keep listening here to WNST, and this conversations will pop up throughout the week. Just a sidelight on the Ravens here. Obviously, number 5 is going to play on Saturday night. We sort of knew that all along, and Joe broke the news on national radio or whatever. But folks are going down to the ballpark on Saturday night. I don't know that any of us are expecting fireworks, but we'd like to see a 3 to 5 series out of Flacco right on Saturday night and see how he slings it around, as he says.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the third preseason game being the dress rehearsal, and I think this one holds a little more importance. One, you want to see Flacco go out there and remain upright, but at the same time, he needs to be in a live pocket for the first time, knowing that there's at least a threat of getting hit. That's part of the process here for him coming back from an ACL injury. But overall, you want to see some production out of the first team offense. You have guys who have played very, very little. I mean, we saw Ben Watson and Mike Wallace and some guys like that on last Saturday against Indianapolis, but didn't see a whole lot of action. So you want to see something to hang your hat on. If Flacco's out there and they go 3 and out 3 or 4 times in a row, that's a problem. Doesn't mean the season's doomed, but that's something that John Harbaugh clearly will not be happy to see. So you want to see him out there. We'll see what it means for Terrell Suggs, who I think probably has a reasonable chance to play in this third preseason game a little bit. Steve Smith, I'm guessing we don't see him, but who knows? I know he's talked about it at a couple points, not caring about playing in the preseason. Brashad Perriman, who has returned to the practice field, and that's great news, obviously, for the Ravens and their fans. I'm guessing we won't see him, considering he's just getting to the field here a couple days leading into the preseason game. But they're starting to look like the team they designed themselves to be. They're getting healthy. They've had a couple injuries this summer, but not to anyone that they were absolutely counting on to be a high-impact player, which is good to see. You hope that continues. But they've gotten most of their horses back. Dumerville came back this week. Perriman came back this week. Suggs and Steve Smith last week. Flacco hasn't played in the preseason yet, but hasn't missed a practice, hasn't missed as much as a practice rep. So from a health standpoint, and go find a table, find any wood you can to knock on right now, they're in pretty decent shape considering all things considered. They've had some nagging injuries. Pitto with a broken finger, Matt Elam now with the knee. That's going to really put his future in doubt as far as what the organization is going to do with his roster spot. But overall, where they have some injuries, they're covered pretty well, and they've gotten guys back healthy. Now the key is you got to start fine-tuning. I asked John Harbaugh about this on Tuesday, that they finally had all their wide receiver pieces on the field for the first time all year, including the off-season workouts. And he said, it's good to see that, but from a coaching standpoint, we have a long way to go, long way to get that passing game to a point where it can help them win games. So, there's still a lot of work to do, but 2.5 weeks to go until the regular season. The good news is they do have a little bit of time. Thursday is going to be a nice test for them to kind of see where they are, from a whole scale standpoint of where this offense is, and frankly, with the defense too. Assuming we see Terrell Suggs run out there a little bit. Doomerville, not so sure about him, but they're close to being a whole, complete team. Now the question is, how good will that team be in 2016?
All right, we'll talk more about the Dennis Pitta and a bunch of other issues here as we get closer to the game on Saturday. Luke is on the practice fields in Owings Mills. We are monitoring all things Orioles in D.C. as well. Anything you missed, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault at WNST.net. I'm a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook Live streaming, as well as on our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.